What female abstinence truly hides. Why does silence disturb us so much? Why does a woman's silence, especially the silence of her body, cause such unease in those around her and sometimes in herself? We live in a culture where movement is equated with meaning, desire with value, and constant interaction with emotional health. From a young age, a woman is taught to be noticeable, desired, open, and available. Not just desired, but indispensable. If she withdraws, chooses solitude, if her body ceases to participate in the dance of desire, society quickly labels her broken, cold, incomplete. But what if silence is not an absence, but a revelation? What if the moment the body stills and stops striving outwardly is not an end, but the beginning of a deeper, authentic inner transformation? In every woman's life, there come periods when external stimuli lose their power, and old patterns of behavior lose their meaning. Even the most exciting expressions of love and attachment begin to feel empty, insincere. It is precisely during such periods, in this silence that seems alien and incomprehensible, that something sacred begins to awaken, a new consciousness, an inner calling, a return to oneself. Carl Jung stated, when the conscious ego is no longer able to bear the burden of denial, the soul begins to speak not with a scream, but through a subtle inner restlessness, through longing, through silence. It is an ancient language, much older than words. This silence is not emptiness. It is a voice, invisible but undeniably alive. It is a message. In this video, we invite you to explore what happens when a woman chooses abstinence not as a renunciation of love or joy, but as a return to clarity, strength, and self-possession. In contemporary culture, a woman's worth is too often measured by her desirability, emotional openness, and participation in romantic scenarios. From screens to daily expectations, the message remains constant: to be desired means to be alive. In such a context, abstinence from sex, relationships, or superficial emotional ties is perceived not as a conscious expression of sovereignty, but as a sign of failure, coldness, or inadequacy. But when a woman withdraws, consciously or intuitively, she begins to hear something that was previously drowned out by the noise of others' expectations. This is not suppression. It is redirection. It is the return of sacred energy inward. Carl Jung reminded us, nothing that is repressed disappears without a trace. It transforms. And often, it is in abstinence that this inner alchemical process begins. When the body stills, other senses sharpen. She begins to see dreams more clearly. Her intuition deepens. She hears the movement of her own inner world, a rhythm that has always been with her, but for a long time remained drowned out by the external pursuit of attention and recognition. What the world calls loneliness, she begins to feel as a dialogue with herself, with something ancient, primal, ancestral. This is the first transition, the end of playing a role and the beginning of perception. A woman is not silent because she has nothing to say. She is silent because for the first time, she is listening. And in this silence, paradoxically, the voice of her soul begins to sound. But the voice of the soul is not always comforting. Most often, it confronts. When a woman turns away from the usual stimuli of desire and external attention, those feelings she has long fled from begin to surface in her life. Old supports, roles, masks, titles, attachments begin to dissolve. What remains is a naked essence. She is no longer anyone's, neither a girl, nor a muse, nor someone's projection. She is simply herself. And this naked awareness can be painful. Jung called this meeting with the shadow, those areas of the psyche where everything rejected has been repressed, unfulfilled needs, forgotten instincts, unlived truths. At this stage, abstinence can seem unbearable. Not because it hurts, but because it demands clarity. Doubts creep in. The silence, recently felt as a sacred space, suddenly begins to ache like a loss. Those around her may pull away. Society whispers, "You are wasting your time." But deep inside, she feels she is not disappearing. She is returning. This is not isolation, it is initiation. A descent into the deepest layers of herself, those that were once given away in exchange for approval, belonging, and a false sense of importance. And it is there, in this inner silence, that something ancient begins to awaken. The personality, shaped by expectations, cracks. And from these cracks, the authentic self begins to emerge, quiet, confident, true. With time, the silence that seemed barren reveals its secret nature as a space of deep, invisible fertility. Absence becomes a womb. Emptiness, not a lack, but a matrix of becoming. In this space, a woman is not passive. She does not wait to be chosen. She becomes the one who chooses. Her abstinence is no longer read through the prism of inadequacy. It is perceived as a sacred intention, an act of inner sovereignty. She does not hide from the world. She protects what is still fragile but is already powerfully forming within her. The change is barely perceptible, but irreversible. She begins to feel whole. Her value is no longer measured by the degree of desirability, but by the authenticity she carries within her. Carl Jung called this individuation, the path on which an individual becomes herself, integrating shadow and light, instinct and spirit, memory and possibility. Now she is no longer driven by hunger, she is driven by selectivity. The rituals of her life change. She moves slower, listens deeper, speaks less often. But every word and every movement she makes is filled with presence. Silence becomes her language. Her strength, quiet, but unyielding. What was once perceived as renunciation now opens as initiation, a return to oneself, a new language of strength. And then one day, something surprising happens. The discomfort doesn't disappear, but transforms into awareness. Loneliness no longer constricts, it resonates like music. Her inner world, once chaotic and torn by longing, now holds space, safely, wholly, gently. She no longer feels emptiness. She feels precision. Her energy is not scattered in search of recognition. It is gathered, magnetically attuned to herself. A woman who once feared being alone now respectfully guards her solitude. She knows her company is not comfort, but a gift. And then comes the moment when the world begins to misunderstand her. Not because she is distant, but because she is no longer available for dilution. She does not seek love to feel whole. She seeks love to reflect what she already is. Jung wrote, "What we deny enslaves us. And what we integrate transforms." This woman has integrated her shadow. She has transformed denial into awareness, and silence into her guide. She no longer needs to be saved. She has become the one who saves herself. And if love returns one day, it will not find a woman waiting. It will find a woman in sovereignty. She does not bend for a relationship. She is the fire around which those who are not afraid of light gather. The path was not about absence. It was about remembrance, that nothing external can satiate what we have not first awakened within ourselves. The silence of the body is not emptiness. It is a sacred pause before transformation. What may seem like distance is often, in fact, a return to one's essence. When a woman turns inward, not out of fear, but out of a deep desire to rediscover herself, she does not disappear. She manifests. The voice rising in her silence does not require loudness. It is unyielding. And once heard, it is impossible to forget. The path of abstinence and inner focus is not renunciation. It is remembrance. A remembrance of a strength that does not need to be seen, because it already knows its own presence. She no longer seeks love to become whole. She brings wholeness to every relationship. She is no longer afraid to be alone, because she walks through life in alliance with herself, with her most sincere and loyal companion. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.